Yes, nailed it. So welcome to WWSMD, or What's Murphy Do? I am Shannon Murphy, and this episode is dedicated to what I would do if I were a physical therapist trying to stay healthy in the middle of a pandemic. So thought we'd take a little nod from a good friend of mine, John Krasinski at the SGN Network, and produce a little show for you dedicated to my tips, tricks, and little neurotic habits to help keep you healthy during the quarantine. So now is a great time to double down on health. As you know, the folks who are most vulnerable to COVID-19 are those with multiple medical conditions. However, spoiler alert, having multiple medical conditions does not improve your immunity to really anything. So more is not better. And if not for the COVID-19 situation, but for your future health and wellness against pneumonia and flu and all the things, it's great to establish some health-related, immune-boosting, viral fighting types of habits now, both for COVID and the future, because germs are always going to be there. So what do? I have a few little habits, rituals, and faves for sure. So I'm also a big fan of Zombieland and the rules. I have a lot of rules. So my rule number one, okay, is to flush out all the bad mucus and the crud in your nasal and oral passages. That is where the majority of viruses and bacteria enter the system, and that's where they first get their stronghold on your body. Okay, so if you can reduce that replication and reduce the amount of time that they spend there doing their thing, all the better. Okay, so I'm a big fan of neti pots. I don't particularly like the little teapot version. It takes a little bit longer. It just holds your head in an awkward position, so from a PT, I'm not a big fan. If you can avoid it, I do like the sinus rinse, where it's just a positive pressure squirt. And yes, you do actually tip your head, squirt it through your nose. I will save you that visual, and it does take some getting used to, but I promise you, if you are motivated and you follow directions and you're just willing to give it some time, you can do this. You can do this. Okay? Read the directions. Don't use tap water. Don't get an amoeba. Amoebas are not good for your health and immunity. However, flushing also relates to gargling, okay? Kind of flushing out the phlegm in the back of your throat using an antiseptic ideally, but you can also use salt water, which has a lot of similar properties in terms of killing germs and changing the pH of the saliva and the phlegm so that you are able to make some headway and get rid of those bacteria and viruses, or at least reduce their load. And a lot of the conversation around the COVID thing and in general has to do with this idea of viral load, how much concentration of the virus is in your phlegm, okay? And that's what the cotton swab testing for those who are actually able to get it is what it's looking at. It's looking at viral load. Presumably, the folks with a lower viral load may be the folks who are either asymptomatic or having a lesser presentation of the disease. We don't know all of this for now, but if you're an odds betting gal like I am and you want to stack the odds in your favor, work on things that reduce viral load in your oronasal pharyngeal complex, and that's a good way to just try and prevent any sort of organism from getting a hold in your body, okay? So another little adjunct to the Listerine, sometimes I'll use microbial silver. Again, read the directions. It is a supplement. You shouldn't overdo it. But silver does have natural antimicrobial properties, and it's a nice little add-on, especially if I'm feeling particularly vulnerable or I feel like I've just got a little bit more of a scratch. I will add a little silver to my routine. So rule number two, what is rule number two? Rule number two, I would say, is magic potions, okay? So for me, I have a few things that I particularly love and adore, and that does not mean that they are exclusive, but I think there is some power in everyone finding something that they feel like works for them, both because there are some legitimate documentation around the homeopathic aspects of these things, but also because it's about having control, and most of a placebo effect is related to kind of the actual idea of having control and doing something positive for yourself. So my favorites include Emergency, okay? Lots of good electrolytes and stuff. It's also good if you're just dehydrated. Silotoxinum, which is hard to find right now, but good to stock up on, especially in bulk on Amazon. It's a lot cheaper. What else? I like the doTERRA On Guard blend, which has like clove and cinnamon. It's super spicy. Feels like it kills just about everything. And then, well, we'll get to that here in a second. So those are a few of my faves, not by any means the exclusives. I have no particular endorsement privileges, but those are just a couple of my personal preferences. Okay, rule number 3. Moving along. Okay, wash everything. All right, so I think we've heard all about washing your hands and hands frequently in the whole 9 yards, but for me, that also applies to washing your hair a lot more frequently than I was before. So definitely getting a little further down in my shampoo bottle here. But anytime I get back from a public place, the very first thing I'm doing is I'm literally stripping down here. I'm taking off a layer before I even come in the house, and then I'm heading straight to the shower to wash my hair. You know, anything you can do to sort of reduce the sort of likelihood of particles and things like that coming into your house. Not gonna hurt, might help, who knows? It's all about stacking the odds, and it's just one of my little weird little habits. What else? Number 4, I would say, actually, as it relates to washing everything with your hands, since your hands are gonna get super dry, my personal little, you know, remedy here is a lot of coconut oil, like just literally baking coconut oil, Cord-Aid, and basically generic Neosporin. I mix those into a rub. I rub them on my hands at least once a day. Definitely has helped keep the cracking and junk down on my hands. So I think that's a pretty good list of some of my favorite little potions, tricks, and habits. More next. All right, so moving on to some other habit-related things. My next set of things, I guess, relate to kind of my intention around a day and how that can help keep you healthy and organized, I think more from a mental standpoint, which I think is especially key at this stage of the game. So for me, rule number 5 is to really set a schedule for yourself. If you don't have the external world telling you when to get up, when to be on a school bus, when to be on 495 or what have you, and you're left to the open water of decision, it can be kind of exciting at first, but much like open water, be very disorienting and ultimately dangerous if you don't get some sort of navigation system in place. So, you know, I think we are all capable and responsible for being our own best taskmaster. So number 5 for me is set a schedule if you don't already have something dictating that for you. For me, that means I do use an alarm, and we'll talk about that, I guess, when we talk about sleep, but I'm still getting up, you know, at a normal time, Monday through Friday, and most of the time Saturday. Sunday's a sleep-in day, Sunday's a whatever, the day can happen. I think that's, you know, that recovery piece is equally as important, but having some structure of a framework during the week is key. So number 5 for me is definitely set a schedule. Rule number 6, sort of related to that, is to start your day with intention. And so whatever that looks like to you, I think can be different. For me, that is very reliably, I get up and the first thing I do is I come and exercise in this space actually. I have a spin bike, so I'm on that every morning. I do a lot of stretching. I've got a aerial yoga swing. Not that any and all of that is necessarily required, but the point is find something that you can do to start your day in a positive way. If the first thing you do is jump on your CNN news feed and read about the latest corona deaths, I would challenge you to think that that's the best initial input that your body needs first thing in the morning and the first thing that your mind needs. You know, be intentional about what you consume, both in your body and visually and in terms of social media or news or whatever. You are a consumer. You have some choice over that. So for me, my intention is exercise, it's stretching. If I'm really on it, I might do a little meditation app. I eat breakfast every morning. take a shower, I make my bed, and I do actually put on earrings, which is just a silly little thing, but for me that's just this little thing for me that means I'm showing up, I'm making an effort, this is gonna be, you know, kind of a normal day in an abnormal world. So, number 6 really is wear earrings. Feel free to send me those pictures. And then number 7, for me, it's called +7, but it really is sleep, okay? So, no surprise there, sleep is essential. We all know it, very few of us get enough of it. And for some of us, this is an opportunity to kind of course correct, and for some of us, it's actually the opposite, and everyone's in a different stage with that. For me, I'm kind of using a +7 rule, so whenever I go to bed, I hit my alarm for 7 hours beyond that, so I know at a minimum, that's when I'm getting woken up. If I wake up before that, I'll get up, I'll get my day going, if I feel like it, but at least I'm getting that 7 hours. And if there's a day where it doesn't pan out, at least I know I've built up a little bit of a reserve. But that recovery, especially now, has so much to do with immunity and kind of really just stacking the odds in your favor. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the physical layout of working at home and what that might be able to look like if you're scrambling to figure out a desk setup and a workspace that has some seclusion and makes sense and doesn't kill your neck and back and all of that. So you would think potentially as a physical therapist I might have a little bit more of an elegant setup. I do not. I was already working from home a good deal, but for whatever vagaries of life and randomness, this has sort of been kind of my type of arrangement for a little while. Actually, it was the kitchen table like most people, so I've upgraded. And you know, but this is totally doable. It doesn't have to be off of Amazon. It doesn't have to be electronic. It doesn't have to be fancy to make it work, because ergonomic really is not a specific thing. It's not a specific chair. It's not something that just costs extra money to put it on the label. It really just refers to the relationship between you and your work. Okay, so creating a positive physical relationship between you and your work really just requires you to be creative about how to adjust heights and adjust your position and posture around it. So just a little quick explanation of what's going on here. So you have very expensive card table here, some leftover Christmas presents that didn't get allocated, a couple of computers, so I ended up using both my home computer and my laptop, my work laptop, so I have 2 screens because dual monitoring can definitely be helpful when you're trying to work between a variety of programs or just juggle a lot of different things like personally I am right now, and just as a kind of a backspace on all of that. So I am the owner of my business, so a lot of my work is related to ownership and management and oversight types of stuff and not just clinical care, which is also why I've been so neurotic for so long, probably about the health thing, because I haven't, for me, getting injured or getting sick has really not been an option for a long, long time, because if I do that, then I don't have necessarily anywhere to put my patients necessarily, and that's my income. My income is very, very highly contingent on my personal ability to show up and be there for folks. Even though that has changed and mitigated some over time, I've definitely, I think, held on to that, and I'm not gonna let it go anytime soon. But that's kind of the backstory maybe on how I kind of got to some of this perspective. But from back to the physical side of things, so I've got a couple different heights here. When you're working from a standing standpoint, you want your elbows and your wrists to be more or less at a 90-degree angle, something where you can be comfortable without jacking your shoulders or having to look down too far. You want to be able to kind of meet your gaze at a slight, either slight downward or slight forward, depending upon if you're wearing reading glasses, computer lenses, all of those types of things. What you don't want to be doing is sitting and cranking your head up, because that tends to create a lot of issues in that upper neck, okay? If you're sitting too long, you tend to get all sorts of those compression issues in your leg and your back. So it's nice to be able to vary that with standing. However, if you have varicose legs or varicose veins, or you just have tissues in your legs and your feet that aren't adapted to standing all day, that's not going to be super comfortable. So definitely mixing it up is a good, moderation in all things, as they say, and I think that definitely goes to the argument of sitting versus standing. Little different proportions are good for everyone. I'm standing on carpet, so that actually does help with some of the fatigue of standing, but you can get mats and all that sort of thing. I also am a fan typically of any sort of L-shaped type of environment, particularly if you have the return to your dominant arm side, or if you're going to be doing work on that side, just because it allows you to have a good radius of contact. It allows you to spread out without having to really do lots of weird twists and maneuvers. So if you have a swivel office chair, obviously you can swivel between those two things, but even without swiveling you can reach pretty easily. And I just have another little random side cart as a laptop cart here for some of my other papers and stuff. I'm a big fan, wireless mice are a dime a dozen nowadays, definitely worth investing in some of those, as well as a pair of headphones. I use just the corded ones, but pretty much all day, every day, you'll see me walking around the house with these looped here or kind of tucked into my collar, so that I can take phone calls from my phone without having to hold it up like this, because our cell phones were not designed for lengthy conversations. So if you don't have a Bluetooth type of deal or whatever, just go old school, get some earbuds. I'll typically leave just one in so I can still hear what's going on around me, and that just becomes a lot more conducive to comfortable conversation, or I'll put it on speakerphone, which is the other alternative. So a couple little real life examples of how to make a bedroom an office, and we'll go downstairs to talk about a little bit in the laundry dish household world to finish things up. So last thing we'll go over is just kind of practical movement strategies and how to actually deal with being in the kitchen a little bit more, doing the laundry a little bit more, and how to do those in ways that don't break your body down, and how to move more easily with those types of things. So I'm a big fan of weight shifting and just being able to actually shift your weight literally from one leg to the other. A lot of people tend to get in the habit of planting their legs, kicking their legs back, arching their back, and just moving from that kind of rooted position. If you separate your feet and allow yourself to rock back and forth, it opens up a lot of options. So from a kind of a dishwasher standpoint, okay, tend to slide one leg back, pull out, okay, keeping a flat back, one leg back, opposite hand is braced on the counter. I can reach in, reach down. If I'm literally just grabbing something here, you can see I'm shifting from one leg to the other. Okay. Throwing this in, throwing this back, throwing this back. I'll take my feet a lot of times and move things. I bring out my little towel rack here and get whatever. A lot of times I'll take my knee and just smush it back in. So on and so forth. If I'm reaching up into the cabinet, again, got one leg back, kind of helps me extend and reach going up and back, okay? You can definitely work on keeping a little bit of hinge in your hips when you do things. I tend to like to slide one leg back and just lean on stuff, okay? If I push on the counter pushes back on me. It's just all a little bit easier. Just try to keep that little bit of softness in your knees, so that you're not hyperextending your back. Keep a little bit of tension in your middle, which helps to protect your back. Wear some sort of house shoes if your feet or your legs get sore. If you're doing a lot of cooking, standing, this is mostly particularly for holiday meals and stuff, but wearing compression socks can definitely help with some of that leg fatigue. So those are my kind of little tips and tricks around the kitchen. And definitely just doing small loads versus doing everything all at once always makes things a little bit easier. Okay there, thanks for making it to the end. Hopefully there were a few nuggets in there for everyone. Definitely not an exhaustive list, just what I personally would do, have done, am doing to make the quarantine situation a little bit better, healthier, and so on. But I'm definitely interested in any ideas and input that you guys have or any questions you have. So we are just always a phone call away, but now we're just a video chat away as well. So through the new wide world of telemedicine and telehealth, we are actually able to problem solve these things in real time, in real video with you guys, which has been super cool for our existing patients, and we're opening that up to pretty much anyone that is interested. So if you would call a friend, phone a family about your random neck, back, shoulder, whatever, certainly feel free to phone a physical therapist because we'd love to help you out. All right, ta-ta for now.